I am H.O. Talk Show in the booth in the building one more again, Razor.
Yeah.
What
Glad
say
to be
ye, Razor?
here.
What say ye?
Hey man, this we got certain shows that we kind of reach back home and find people, man.
Hey.
They're not lost, but we just had to find them and bring them up to Charlottesville. So I'm anxious to do this interview. I'm actually proud to be part of it.
That's right. That's right. You know the old saying. It's a poor frog that don't praise his own pond.
Ain't that what Grandma said?
That's what Grandma used to say. So Grandma used to say, because while we, love being in the Ville and love repping, all the great history that's here as well. There is a greater Charlottesville area, and the thing about Charlottesville too, man, is, like you not only have the town and gown, but you have the county kids. Sometimes when you use that term county kids, that can encompass all the surrounding counties because, growing up, Charlottesville, if you're around here, Charlottesville is your city.
Yeah.
Like you go into town, usually you mean Charlottesville.
Yeah.
So that being said, we have a sister with us that some of our listeners may remember from early IMHO days. She came here to talk more about banking back then.
Absolutely, yeah.
But guess what? But the sister been stacking. She started with the banking and then she figured out how to diversify that portfolio even more. None other than Miss Japrecia Terrell. You know what? Now you a country girl, like I'm a country boy.
That's right.
Is it still Terrell? Is it Terrell?
Yeah,
you got a little money.
I like Terrell.
You like Terrell. You got a little change now.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
gotcha.
Yeah, Terrell, keeping it real. Japrecia Terrell. Now she is the owner of Wolford and Associates Realty. And y'all check what I said. Sister, owner.
That's right.
Realty.
Yes.
Wolford and Associates Realty. So she's here to talk about that because some folks maybe even have met her by now in the Charlottesville area because she has been reaching out, becoming more and more part of the community.
Now she got a nickname, child. That we call her by. We can make a family here real quick. We know it's Pre. You know what I'm saying? I ain't gonna go back to child nickname, but we're gonna call her Pre. That's all right. Mama call her Pre, we're gonna call her Pre.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, indeed. So Japrecia, thanks for joining us.
Thank you guys for having me. Thank you. Yes,
Good
afternoon.
Family, man.
Yes, indeed. So as I said, I think some of our listening audience and folks in Charlottesville have already been getting familiar with you because you've been coming to socials, networking with folks, getting to know folks more. So let the folks know though about the foundation of your business, of being the owner and starting Wolford and Associates Realty. What does that mean to you being a Black woman starting your realty? Tell us, just I don't even know where you're gonna start, but just tell us.
It's been a decade in the making. A decade in the making. And as I was driving up here today, I was just thinking like full circle.
Yeah.
It was a decade ago when you guys had me here. Hey. And I believe I had just started real estate, but I just knew more about banking at the time because it was 16 years like in my head. Yeah. So it just felt good to just know a decade later.
What was it, Wachovia?
Yeah.
Was it Wachovia?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Wachovia, then turned Wells Fargo and then decided to make that leap. And a decade later, here I am. It's been a journey. It has been a lot of growth. It's been a lot of failures. I think that's the part that a lot of people miss is that in order to get to where that shine happens, there's failure that's taken place. And so, I've taken some L's on the chin and I've dealt with it and I've learned the most from it to be able to navigate what works well. Yeah. I spent a lot of time understanding the marketplace where I service. I'm licensed in Virginia. I'll go anywhere where midnight will take me.
Okay.
Wherever my car would take me, I will go. But I've also learned the territories that work in my favor. The territories I'm an expert in. But I'm not afraid of a challenge. So
let me ask you a question, all right? Because it's funny when you kind of know somebody, so you try to, maintain your professionalism. You know what I'm saying? Like Sir Charles make me do that. Please. But one thing that I can always say about you, right, is that you never not help nobody.
Right.
Regardless, right? So being a business person, working in corporate America, how do you find that line to where you have to maintain, because somebody's listening that wants to do what you've done.
Absolutely.
So how do you find that line to maintain, okay, this is where business starts. This is where friendship ends. And at the end of it, we're going to try to find you what best suits you.
I think the most important thing for me, like I do, Troy, I engage immediately. If someone says that they would like to start a business, if someone comes to me and says, can you talk to me about what you do? Like, that is an addiction for me.
Okay.
I will talk forever.
Okay.
And if my family is listening, they know, because some days they just want to take my phone and they want to throw it.
Yeah.
But it is like a passion, because I just can relate to, and I can still relate today, just trying to navigate how do I actually get to that place where I want to be. And if you don't have resources, how do you get there? You know, a lot of people, unfortunately, they gatekeep.
Yeah.
You know, I had certain individuals that said that they were going to hold my hand to get to the point to where I am today. And I called and I got no answer, but I'm a 3 strike you're out kind of girl. So, you know, I had to navigate. I had to figure it out. And I don't ever want that for someone else.
Okay.
So even if I don't know the answer, you know, most of the time I know somebody who does. You know, I've even reached out to you, Charles, for different resources for individuals just based on your line of work. But it's just all about not gatekeeping and being able to share, which is the one of the primary reasons I started Wolford and Associates is and the credo is to make sure that you're the most decorated at what you do. And you do that by constantly staying in the know, educating yourself, not being afraid of failure, being able to tackle the challenge. And, you know, something that I'm sharing with my group now is just understanding real estate is not a Monday through Friday. It's really not. In this marketplace, it's not. You do have to be able to service. If you're looking to be successful, you have to be open and willing to service everyone. And we do have a lot of blue collar jobs that are in the area, and you don't have the flexibility of being on the phone during the hours of 9 to 5,
right?
You know, and on the weekends, I try to cut it off sometimes and dedicate. But yesterday, real estate won and I lost.
Okay.
It was a lot of back and forth, but it's the nature of what you want. You go after it.
Yeah. So Pri, let me ask you this though. When so many people would have been satisfied at the level that you were at when it comes to just success, right? So, you know, looking at it from the standpoint of I have a career, I'm successful, taking care of myself and my family, all those good things. Like, tell us more about that passion and that reason for feeling like you, being Japrecia Terrell, needed to own your own real estate company.
I love chaos.
Okay.
I love chaos. And it's something about, okay, once you achieve something, it's like, what else? And honestly, this may sound corny, but it's like, what else can I do to help my community or someone else, but do it differently so people do not have to struggle with getting their hands on the source of the source. And, you know, even at this level, and I mean, I haven't mastered real estate in no way. There's always something you can learn. The market is different. Consumers are smart. They get educated day by day. And so you have to know how to navigate that. So I'm constantly open to learning something.
Okay.
And so I haven't mastered that, but I'm always just so hungry for something else. And this was the next challenge.
I'm sorry.
No, just opening up a firm. It was the challenge for me to tackle, to understand how to be a broker, how to make sure that I educate. I even had complaints about how certain agents were doing real estate after the pandemic because everything was just so quick. And I think that's what pushed me to go ahead and get it done, is because having someone teach you to do things the right way. It's not that my way is the perfect way, but at least doing things that protect you.
Right, right. Now, I kind of hear you teetering around representation, or like, or you can tell me if I'm making that up, but did you see a need to where, you know, you being the person you are, feeling like that you can connect with customers, or like the representation that your brand gives could maybe help folks who may be scared to make a purchase, or scared to open up like their financial status to people? How much is representation, being a Black woman, you know, how much does that mean to you in this market?
It's super important, not just being a Black woman, but just being a female and opening a firm in a very small town where you had some of the OGs of the business that have been there forever. So there's still like those struggles on a day-to-day basis of how I'm doing real estate or how I'm training others to do real estate. And so you just have to spend a lot of time understanding that market. And there's so many factors that go into why I did this. So I won't bore you forever, but there's so many factors that go into it. You know, even the location was intentional about where Wolford and Associates is established. Being the community, that's the core of it, because unfortunately, the society that we live in, not everybody is educated on investment properties. Not everybody is educated on the financial literacy part of things, or even knowing how to get out of that rat race of renting, because it's becoming expensive. So at Wolford and Associates, we have a calendar that is open to the public. So you have different workshops. They're not just geared towards home buying. They're not just geared towards selling your home, but it's also, how do you save money? That has nothing to do with buying a home, but how do you save money? Right. You know, how do you balance the energy in your home? You know, if you've had trauma that's taken place in the home, you know, we have specialists and experts that are coming in and helping with that. So that's it's deep. Not just centered primarily around real estate when you get down to the community part of it. And we just want to be the source of the source.
I have a question for you. Sure. When it comes to our community, you know, we know how to operate heavily with cash. So how do you keep the older generation from gatekeeping the younger generation about going out here getting a cell phone that you can't pay for, going out here getting things that mess up your credit at a young age before a house is even in the equation?
Well, one, I like to spend my money. I work too hard. Look, I'm not the expert in that area. I like to have a good time. So that's why we have experts come in for that. But I will share this with you. Just in my experience, just from banking, and then what I see coming through real estate, and just being in a community where society struggles in general with that generational curse. They're just afraid to spend money, period, because they never know when something else is going to happen. So they're never going to be the one to encourage you to go live your life, encourage you to take that risk and go buy an investment property. You know, they're not going to encourage you to do that. And, you know, it's okay. I think that's the balance and the fine line between having someone in your ear saying, hold up, wait a minute, think about it, and how society can just force you and push you to make quick decisions about things. I have a foundation, not to put a plug in this, and it's a baby and it's a baby and it's walking. It's called Changing the Narrative Foundation. And it's changing the way we think we have to. And so your question is one of those things, is educating that older generation on how to be more current and making those financial decisions today. Because a lot of the older generation I still have today, some of them have no idea what Zelle is. Right. Yeah. So how could they kind of help me to not make a poor decision about how to handle certain things when it comes to finance? So it's trying to bridge the gap just with how we think we have to about so many things, and financial literacy is one.
Okay. What is the quickest ways? My last question. What is the quickest ways that a person that wants to get a home can invest in themselves? I know when I was a kid, they used to tell you go get a credit card at the jewelry store and develop, you know, credit like that. But I don't really know what a person should do to get something started that doesn't hinge on the verge of catastrophe if they miss a payment.
I still feel like, Troy, that is the same thing that I hear a lot of my lenders say. You would be surprised. Actually, one of the agents in the office, they actually have a client that has zero, does not have a credit score at all. And it's because he still paid cash with everything. But the surprising thing is he's not even 40. And so he was already taught pay cash with everything, and he does not have a credit score. And the one thing the lender is going to tell you, credit cards are more impactful because they're aligned. So you got to use it, pay it back, as opposed to an installment if they were to go and get a car. So a credit card is still it. You know, it's still the way to create. And traditionally, what I hear lenders say is like 6 months, you know, you begin to see that history kind of show up on that credit report.
I got a good question for you.
Yes. But that's why you got to go to those classes that she offers. Because the credit card could kill you too.
I was going to say, how to manage it. One payment miss on that credit card can be so impactful, and it can jeopardize everything for 12 months. You know, missing any payment on any type of loan can jeopardize you, but the credit card just carries a huge portion of the pie, even with how you spend it. You know, if you're over 50% versus being under 25% of that card usage.
All right. Now here go.
Oh gosh.
You remember what the housing market did back in the early 2000s, right? Are y'all already forecasting what could possibly happen to the housing market depending on who wins the next election?
I absolutely am not.
Okay.
And you know, even last year, first part of this year, you know, I sat on a panel and the discussion came up just about again, us kind of going into a recession like that 2006, 7, 8 when things crashed. And that's not like, it's not the case. There were too many things put in place then that taught us something that we didn't already know. So all of those mortgage companies, government programs, it's hard to be foreclosed again. It's really hard. You don't see a lot of short sales anymore. The bank is going to do everything possible to keep you in that house. There's different insurances that are in place now with loan programs. So that way the banks aren't upside down. And that's what happened quite a bit then. And, you know, I have investors that cleaned up. They bought like 15, 20 properties during that time because they were so upside down. So the election, I mean, it's happened how many times since the early 2000s? And it's never really done anything. You know, I think now we just have a pool of buyers, consumers, everybody wanting those COVID pandemic rates again. And it's not going to happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Now, along those lines, a question I have is because again, you sound like someone that wants to be amongst the community, part of the community. You want to benefit and educate, not just sell houses.
Right.
So that being the case, as we look at inflation and things right now, I was talking to another friend of mine, Richard Johnson, who's also a realtor more in the Northern Virginia area.
Shout out to him.
Yeah, shout out. DJ Rush Hour.
AKA.
And one of the things we were talking about is when people were kind of comparing inflation and greed, because what we're experiencing right now is that some of it is corporate greed and some of it is like economic inflation. But the point I'm getting at, though, is that where something he educated me on, which is kind of obvious now that he said it. But like when you look at the housing market, and the example he gave me was you take two houses, same neighborhood. That's for simplicity reasons. Let's say both 100,000. All right. If one has a bidding war and sells for 200,000, now that whole neighborhood is worth 200,000. So my question to you is like how do you sometimes balance that? Because me as like a bleeding heart liberal progressive kind of thinker, I'm like, well, we need to regulate that mug, put a cap on it. Be like, your houses in this neighborhood is worth this. You cannot sell over it, but that hurts the free market.
It does.
So I'm just curious your thought process around it when people say it's too expensive to live. We can't afford it. Houses are out of control. Yeah, like so. Your thoughts about that?
I mean, it's very expensive to live. When I think about if any of my children decide that they want to purchase or rent or anything just in certain markets alone, I'm like, how on earth are they going to afford it? Because then when you look at what the pay scales are of some of those jobs, the math doesn't math. It's not mathing. And so, you know, Charles, to your point and that scenario that Richard brought up, it actually happens. Just a couple months ago, I sold a property. It was listed for like $869, and the listing agent and we had several interactions and conversations about the list price, even when they purchased it, because it was a new build. It was the model home. And, you know, this house was overpriced. Like it was never, ever going to sell at that price. And I think in those situations right there, it depends on who comes along. It does not constitute that every house in the neighborhood is going to sell for that price. Some people are going to want to. And the agent reached out to me and said, I just got a phone call and somebody wants to sell their house around the same price. It's hard. I think, again, it's the marketplace and where you are, whether or not you're able to pull that off. But sometimes it comes down to the circumstance. And it is hard to make that decision because you're being enlisted to represent a seller who wants to get top dollar, or do you say, hey, I'm not your girl and walk away and you miss a paycheck? You know, so for me, I am very transparent. Even this morning, I had a listing appointment this morning on a commercial space. I'm very transparent with all of my sellers. You know, I have room for pushback. You know, I'm going to do my homework, offer you some prices. I have room for pushback. But if it's something unrealistic, I'm fine with saying I'm not your girl, because at the end of the day, it jeopardizes who you are, because it's just sitting. But a seller doesn't understand, and sometimes they gotta learn that on their own. And I don't think I've seen where a community has kind of widespread, like, okay, you started, now I'm going to do that. But I mean, it can happen in like smaller increments, you know. But again, it's based on who's buying it and the direction it can go.
Now, is that, and this education for me, is that more of what causes like like housing market crashes, or is it more like the banks having an issue that causes the crash, or is it more just you bought something and now you're underwater with it and you can't sell it for what you paid?
It's the risk you choose to take as that purchaser, right? Because again, my client who purchased this property that was priced higher than everyone else, she's had her eye on that property for 2 years. And typically one is not going to overpay for a property unless it's a sought after community. Values are always there. You're never losing value. It's always going up. So people are willing to pay over. It's just when it comes to the bank is not willing to lend you more than what it will appraise for. Right. And so you have to be that very disciplined buyer. Like, how much cash have you been putting away to be competitive and say, you know what, bank, you can give me this 80% on it. I'm going to take care of the rest. And so that can happen.
In today's market, what is more valuable, land or the house?
The house.
That's crazy.
And I kind of hesitate to that because I'm a true believer it's all in the market. You know, you could buy some land in Orange County. No shade, Orange County.
I hope not.
But you could buy some land in Orange County and it could take 10 years before it ever is worth anything, where someone can come along and make it valuable. But you can buy that same square feet in Arlington and it's a treasure. And immediately, it's not 10 years of waiting. So it depends. I mean, I've had clients like along Route 3, you know, and they have some of those data centers and the talk of Amazon and everything like that. So those that kind of purchased along Route 3 years ago, like they're anxiously waiting, like what's going to happen next.
We have a house on Route 3, right?
There you go.
We get bombarded with, do you want to sell? Do you want to sell? Okay.
And so, I mean, I think you should always explore, where am I with it? You know, where's the value at for you? But I definitely feel like, just depending on what that financial goal looks like, it's going to be the home.
Yeah. So we are joined by none other than Japrecia Terrell, owner of Wolford and Associates Realty. And we have a comment online, y'all, that says she's an okay agent. Psych, best in the business. And y'all can guess who that's from. That's from none other than Cocoa Butter himself.
Oh,
A-Rod. No, Shea Butter. I'm sorry.
Shea Butter.
Yeah. A-Rod, what's
get
up?
The money.
Queens get the money. Aaron approves loans. Y'all check him out as well. Because A-Ron was a commentator, co-host on here as well. So he's always giving some financial tips, whether it was real estate or whether it was just like financial advice. So
MLS 23-72-5.
But thanks for listening to A-Ron. So I know y'all do business together as well. Right?
This decade, I don't know if I would be where I am today if he had not put up with me so much.
That's what's up.
He has been very impactful in my career.
Good brother.
He answers the phone when I call, and if he doesn't answer, I keep calling. And then I'll say, "What's wrong with you? Why didn't you answer my call?" So we have been connected to the hip. He has taught me a lot. He's even the one, I don't know if you guys know this or not, when I was at Wells Fargo, Wachovia turned Wells Fargo, Aaron was on the other side, and he is who I went to first to ask about,
I remember,
I want to switch. I want to do something else. He had said then, I think you'd be best suited as a realtor. And I'm like, no, I'm not listening to you. So that's when I got into lending. But I think God had a different plan for that, though, because he wanted me to go into lending to have the foundation of the understanding of what you need to move around in this business. And it was truly I became an exceptional agent because I understood the lending process. So that was God's plan. But then I went to Aaron and said, okay, I'm ready to be a realtor now. And he's been wonderful.
This question goes great with what you just said. 1 second, Charles. If you can think about this, if you can think about this, what measures can be put in place for a person that purchases a house like that wants to transfer it to their children later on?
Definitely work with the title company, the title agency, attorneys. So that way you can make sure those things are in place. I spend a lot of time with families where those things are not put in place, whether it's for their children or they have extended family. And I spend a lot of time trying to educate people in the aftermath. And so if you want to know what you can do today, be proactive. Just go to a title agent, go to an attorney and say, hey, how do I do this? So that way it's set up the proper way. And it's not about having the home paid off. It's about making sure that you still have that plan in place, because your children may decide they want to move forward with that house. But again, whether it's two siblings arguing over it, whether it's 10 family members tied to one property, it can be a nightmare. And it's emotional.
Yeah. So, and Aaron did have a question for you as well. Or comment. He wants you to talk to the folks about the importance of just getting into real estate, because so many people miss an appreciation and value by simply not executing or being prepared.
By way of just purchasing real estate? I'm assuming that's what he's speaking of.
Yeah, Aaron, if you're still listening, you may have to clarify that. But yeah, he was talking about the importance of getting in. So it sounds like the buyer, you said, people missing appreciation and value.
Yes, absolutely.
Simply not executing.
I think that's a good point. Yeah. I always say you just need to start that pre-plan. That pre-plan is so important. A lot of consumers feel like they have the plan of when they think they're going to be ready, and you miss opportunities. And Aaron and I actually spoke of this a couple of weeks ago, just with some missed opportunities with investment properties for myself, just overlooking and feeling like, no, I shouldn't do it. I've always had this fear of, with my children in college, like, okay, I need to make sure I always take care, of that. And, you can miss opportunities, because if you can it's all about creating an additional stream of income. And that's where real estate can be very valuable. And even if it's your first home, you just got to ask the professional the question, not the family friend, not an aunt, an uncle. You want to ask them, the professional, someone who is currently in the business, because their experience 5 years ago doesn't match today, or their experience with real estate 20 years ago, it's not the same thing today.
It's good you said that, because with all the outlying information that you mentioned, as far as preparing people and educating people, do you feel that real estate is still like the number one investment to have?
Absolutely.
Because I think it used to be a time where people would say just buy. If you buy something, you can't go wrong. But do you feel now that you need to be more prepared nowadays, need to be educated on money management more so?
I think you have to be mentally prepared.
Okay.
Because when it comes to the money management part, and Aaron knows because he's online, we've had clients who have purchased homes and they have $1,000 in their account. So it's not about you having to
Where's that credit though?
They may have the credit that they need, or they may not. It's if you're willing to accept that pre-plan that's put in place as far as preparing. There's just this perception, this stigma still, where you have to have a 700 credit score and you have to have 5% or 10%. You can. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you are trying to find out where you are, engage yourself, you just have to reach out to that professional. And real estate is what moves the world. I mean, it's just huge. I mean, it's one thing that we can't live without. And so it's what kind of keeps the economy going. When it's bad, it's bad. I will say that. But when it's good, it's good. It's what makes things happen.
Now, saying that, and people are always talking about affordable housing, right? That's sort of a buzz term, a catchphrase. So when is it okay to rent? Because I got to imagine that housing in general, one size doesn't fit all.
And that's so true. I don't know how in depth everybody kind of stays with it, but renting does work for certain circumstances, certain individuals. Because when you own a home, I don't know if everybody has read or maybe come across Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And then I actually looked at something last week. Steve Jobs had even talked about just when you own a home as like your actual home, it's not truly an asset when you're paying that mortgage. But when you have 5 rental properties, it's a stream of income and it's not your money. Look at what you've created there. And so it really just depends on what the plan is, because what I'm sharing with you may not be the fit for everyone based on what your end game is.
Right.
So I think once you discover, I need to create another stream of income, we got to make sure we buy the right property for you. Because if you're going to rent this property out, we got to make sure none of the money is coming out of your pocket. But then if you are living in an area where the cost is so expensive and you can actually dump your money someplace else to make you money, then maybe you do rent.
Okay.
What do you feel about land trusts?
It's an iffy thing. And, I had my first experience with land trusts here in Charlottesville when it comes to affordable housing. I had a client call me and say, oh my God, Japrecia, look how much these houses are. And so when I did my digging on it, there's pros and cons to it, because with the way that is set up to create affordable housing, you don't actually own the land itself. And if you create too much equity, or if the turnaround time on it is so quick to where you have equity in it, if you read the fine print, you do have to make sure the bank is not basically coming for part of that equity if you're ready to sell.
Okay.
So you do. And Charlottesville was my first experience. If I could think of the community where it was, I'd share it. But it was in a land trust. Mm-hmm. And, you had properties that were wonderful price points. And again, the concept is affordable housing. I do wish more places would explore that. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, it's a way to get people in at affordable mortgage. You do own something. Mm-hmm. And 9 times out of 10, someone's not making that much equity and turn around trying to sell it within that first 2 years. And that's the thing about it.
So when it comes to the term affordable housing, this is where all three of y'all can help me. Is affordable housing to what I'm purchasing or where I'm renting? Because they just don't seem like the same thing to me.
But they can be. I mean, I feel like every marketplace that I can think of, kind of neighboring Charlottesville, Culpeper, I wouldn't so much say Northern Virginia, and I am throwing shade against Northern Virginia because it's so expensive, but affordable housing is on both ends. Like new construction in Culpeper, 2-story townhouse, less than 2,000 square feet, you're already paying like $340. Mm-hmm. And so when you look at rates, again, it goes back to the jobs. If someone that lives in Culpeper is working a job in Culpeper, that is a ridiculous amount of money to actually pay. And your job isn't paying you the pay scale that you should have. So you do have to have some discipline, or you have to take advantage of some of the products and programs that Aaron or any of the other lenders would offer that are designed for rural markets. So that way it can help you with closing costs. It can help you with down payments. There's even programs, and I have kind of gate kept this because another agent shared it with me. You do have those programs out there where they can create it based on what you can afford, and you can still own the house. And when it comes to rent, I hate to say this because all of my realtor colleagues will probably hate me for saying this, but I try to make sure that if I am interacting with a client that has a rental property, that we're making it make sense, because it is hard to even rent anymore. That's the affordable part, because the calculation is like 3 times the rent amount. Like if someone is making that much money, and then some days I see where they want you to have a 650 or 700 credit score. If all of that is in place, go buy a house. If you have to have that much to qualify just to rent, go buy a house. Yeah. And so that's where the agents at Wolford are finding out. Let me ask the question, have they explored purchasing yet? And they say no. 2 of the agents in the office just acquired 3 clients just by asking that question. And they were taking them to go look at a rental that was like over $2,000 a month.
Yeah. And I know a lot of it is like people see this astronomical figure when it comes to some of the house prices. But I can't help but think that a lot of times it's our perception, right? It's just like when you go to buy a car, like people can sort of digest the price of a car more, but it's still the same idea, right? Of like, you gotta not just look at the total price, because you're not coming out of pocket with that all right now. Right. It's like you're gonna figure out what your budget is, and then how many years your term needs to be, right? But now, don't get me, I understand that like there's still some houses that's gonna be out of your budget, but I just wanted to know what you would share with people who may look at the housing prices, but they may in fact be able to budget to get, you may pay on it longer. But I'm curious on those conversations that you may have with folks
you gotta live somewhere
to kind of get that what do they call it, like the sticker fear, or like the
sticker shock.
Yeah, sticker shock. Sticker shock.
Yeah. And I think a lot of counties are experiencing that right now. Like in this footprint, they are experiencing like the sticker shock. Like I just mentioned, a 2-story townhouse is $340. And so I can remember
that's new.
It's new, but it's still the square footage is still, very little. It's not a lot of square footage there for that price point. So there is a lot of sticker shock. Some days when I'm just kind of riding through the footprint, I'm like, wow, this is what it's like to live in an expensive area almost. When you think about how do you move around in Northern Virginia, DC, or Maryland, like you have to have jobs that pay you enough to be able to accommodate that lifestyle. And even if you're just keeping it simple, you're not even partying every weekend. You're not at every event that's happening, just the basic stuff. And I feel like that is the direction that we definitely are headed. So I'm team find jobs that are paying us more, jobs start paying us more, because the growth of the houses and the cost of it is far surpassing the jobs and what they're paying.
Are you team new building or team finding something that's already established?
I'm team finding what's going to work. I'm not really a new or existing, because a client comes different too. I have some clients that are only new construction, and they understand that. Like, I can show them a very pristine, clean house that is already existing. No, they're just team new. So I'm about what works. Like right now, there's townhouses that are 3 stories with a garage, 2,500 square feet, and those are priced $340 as well. So you tell me, which one would you choose? That new construction with only 2 stories, less than 2,000 square feet, or would you go with that 3-story?
My knee's getting bad. I'm picking some without steps.
Exactly, right there.
And Max and Razor did bring up like the trust earlier too. Talk about the advice that you would give when it comes to families who have inherited homes and properties, the best way to continue with that. Because what I see a lot of times is that like there's sort of 2 facets, right? Like if you're in an area like Charlottesville, or I imagine some areas in Northern Virginia, the taxes are just so outrageous. So maybe the people that inherited, or even like some folks who may have paid it off, but now still can't afford the taxes, they got to make a decision on whether do I hold on to this while it builds value somehow and figure out how to pay this. The other piece is when it's left, the right process, because I feel like particularly Black folk, we leave one thing to a bunch of people, and that normally causes issues. That normally causes issues. So it's like, so those 2 things, one, like what you do with the inheritance that you maybe can't afford, and how you actually should leave that property.
So it kind of goes back to what you had asked me earlier, just like what can you do to be proactive? That's the thing. What can you do to be proactive? Again, it's the same response. Getting with someone now. And even if mom and dad or whoever are still living, we want them here on earth with us forever. But it's having that hard conversation. It's uncomfortable, but having that hard conversation, because I promise you, in the aftermath, it's 10 times harder. Right now, I have 2 siblings that are in court because one wants to keep the property and the other one does not. So now an injunction is being filed. I have a family of 6 that own a property. They're all spread out. They all inherited it. I've had properties where sisters and brothers come from out of the woodwork that they didn't even know dad or mom had, and now they want a piece of the pie. And the best thing you can do is just go either set up that will or find out. I had a young lady call me last week. She actually owns a property from a previous marriage. She's now married, and her now husband have had that very open conversation. She wants to be able to continue to have him in the house, so he has lifetime rights to the property. He does not own the property upon her passing. Her children will. Okay. And that's different. And you want to protect it, because if she leaves this earth and he remarries, in Virginia, it's a common law state. So now guess what? Their stepfather and his new wife own that property, not her children. So she is being proactive, and I connected her with the title agent so that way they can put that in actual writing, so they don't have to argue over it. And I think, to go back to part of your question too, Charles, when do you decide if that loved one has passed on and the family has also had this house in the family now for 10 years, who gets to rent it? Who gets to stay there? Who gets to do the maintenance? Who's paying the taxes? Who's paying the insurance? You can't leave a house empty, because that makes the insurance double when they're vacant, whether you know that or not. And, I've had some of this experience with my own family, just kind of seeing both sides of it. It's emotional. You want to keep the property forever. But I also feel like you have to look at the cost that's going into it. What is the plan? And one of the generational cycles of things is that we want to keep this house forever, and they would have wanted it. And this is not about me having a home to sell at all. It's about what makes sense. Is there one person paying the taxes, one person doing the maintenance, and the person in the house is not even paying rent, not even paying anything, like even into a family account for the family. So you got to look at those things and kind of see who's doing what, and then you make those decisions.
Before we let you go, is there any area that's cheaper in like our Charlottesville area, Louisa, Culpeper, Madison, when it comes to purchasing homes, or is just everything crazy right now?
I think every locality is experiencing some level of, this is more than what I used to pay. just because of rates and just because of the cost of building since the pandemic went up.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to know which county is cheaper than Culpeper, mm-hmm. which county is cheaper than Charlottesville, you know, who's cheaper, Orange or Louisa, mm-hmm. that's really mm-hmm. how you have to look at it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bro, I reached out to Pre last year. There was an auction in Madison County on this country road mm-hmm. for like a one level. It was like 2 bedroom, like 1 bath. I was like, Pre, is this serious? Like they asking this much a starting bid on an auction? And when I saw that, I was like, man, the game is messed up right now.
Yeah.
Like I thought I was gonna come in, on the low.
I thought you were
on the auction.
Yeah.
Now, you did talk about all the controversy of everybody owning the home. Is it smart for, let's say, if me and Charles was to go in together to purchase a home?
It can be. I think that's something that you guys have to be on the same page behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. Like, what is it going to look like? What does your team look like of individuals that's going to take care of like routine maintenance? Are mm-hmm. you flipping it? Are you holding on to it in this rental income? Mm-hmm. That is one of the things that factor in too when you talk about investment properties. Do you want it to hold? Or are you mm-hmm. looking to sell? Mm-hmm. Because the cost is going to look a little bit different too.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But no, not opposed against that at all. I just think you always have to be on the same page.
Okay.
Yep.
Good stuff.
Yes, indeed. We have been talking with none other than the owner of Wolford and Associates Realty, Japrecia Terrell. Man, that feels good to say.
Country girl.
Boss lady.
From back home.
Yep.
From back home.
Right. Yep. But Pre, before we let you go, the last thing I have for you is like, you're expanding your reach. You come into a new market. Mm-hmm. For the folks that may be listening that's already in this market, right? Who may be feeling the type of way. Let's keep it 100.
Yes.
Like, what is that sort of relationship building like when you when you're coming into a new market that may already be established realtors? What would be the lasting words you would want to leave with the listeners when it comes to what to expect by seeing your brand in Charlottesville more?
Same thing that I said, just trying to be community focused, giving to the community. So what can Wolford offer to you as a community? Because it's a new look for a real estate company to focus on the community. Mm-hmm. So yes, I am looking to spread my wings. I told you I live off of that chaos of what else can I do to help someone. And so Culpeper is not the only stop for Wolford and Associates Realty. Mm-hmm. And the agents there don't just cover Culpeper. I've never just covered Culpeper. I've driven wherever midnight takes me, and they kind of are spread out in certain territories that they love. So I am hoping that in God's plan, you're going to see more of me in the Charlottesville market. Mm-hmm. I've been spending some time up here just understanding the lay of the land. I worked here years ago. And so just coming back and kind of revisiting some of those places and seeing what Wolford would be able to bring. Mm-hmm. I think most importantly, stepping into a territory I'm unfamiliar with, mm-hmm. It's going to look different, and I got to be prepared for what that pushback has been. I think that's been what my career has been the entire decade that I've been a realtor, is that mm-hmm. pushback, as well as that Northern Virginia market too.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Well, best of luck to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we always accepting underwriters.
Hey.
I'm just saying.
I'm trying to find one of those myself. I want to
create Charles, Queens, get to the money.
Hey, Aaron, Queens, get the money.
Queens, get the money.
All right, pretty much continued success, and we'll hope to talk to you again soon.